Hi, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking chapter books. So I didn't make this video. I think I promised to make it 2 weeks ago probably, and I never got around to it, and I've had several reminders. So I'm going to take a little time to just go through some chapter books that we've enjoyed as a family, mostly read-alouds. My name is Julie if you're new here, and I have 8 children. My oldest is 13 down to 9 months old. We have just about every age in between. So how do you even pick chapter books? I don't know. There are thousands and thousands of amazing books that I could pick. So that was part of the reason that I put off doing this video, just because it's too hard to decide. However, I was given much assistance by 2 things. One is the friendly reminders from you saying, get it done. And 2, our library is still closed here in the area, and so I just had the pick of what I had on my shelves, so that helped narrow it down a lot. I even have some books that I've loaned out, or books that I had packed up somewhere else, so I don't have my full collection here to share with you, and that really helped me because I could just look through the ones that we had and pick out some favorites and say, we'll talk about the rest another time. I tried to pick books that you may not have heard of, maybe that were a little bit less ordinary. Of course, there's some in here that probably all of you have heard of too. So let's not chat anymore. Let's just go ahead and get started. Okay, this book, Caddie Woodlawn, is based on a true story, and this book I have read to my kids twice, believe it or not. I have some adventuring kids, and so this book is right up their alley because Caddie is a girl who does not behave like her sisters do, which was considered proper in that time. She would rather run with her brothers, and she has friends who are Indians, and she gets in all kinds of scrapes, and it's just got a lot of adventure that my kids really liked. This series here I have talked about before. This is an excellent series for, you could do it as a read aloud, it would be enjoyable for that, but also for kids who are just coming into their own with enjoying chapter books, reading to themselves. This book, the whole series actually, is very interesting. It moves along quickly. It's not, the text isn't large, you know, it's just more of a beginner chapter book text. And they're just well written. They're captivating stories of people in history, and there are many. I think we only have maybe 8 that we own, but it's a very, very big series. Okay, we have read, let's see, this series is the very first chapter book series that I read to my kids when Isabella was probably 5 years old. We started with the first one, Little House in Big Woods, and we have read through the entire series multiple times as the kids have gotten older. And I was just telling Jason, we should probably read through it again because we have new little ones who don't remember it. This is a series that we read through as a family. So I tend to have 2 different reading times during the day. I have my lunchtime reading, which will be a chapter book that I read just to the kids. And then we'll have our after dinner or our Sunday afternoon reading book, which is one that Jason listens to as well. I read to the whole family. And a lot of times that will be more of kind of a serious book, but not always. Right now we're in the middle of Richard Wurmbrand. Actually, we're on the last chapter. It has been excellent, but definitely is more serious. So that would be one. This whole series is excellent. If you ever get an opportunity to buy these, just buy them up. You won't regret it. Very well written. But of course, sometimes we pick a more lighthearted series, and that's where we have read through. I've read through this once with the kids and once with the entire family. There are many books in the series, and then after you're done with all the books about Laura and Mary, you can move on to when Laura is grown and married and has a daughter, and the fun just keeps going on. They even have books that you can go way back and read the books about Laura's ma, Caroline, and so you can read about her childhood. So it's just a wealth of literature there. Another book that my little ones enjoyed is a bear called Paddington. This is a book that's written by a man who is from England, and so you definitely have that authentic English flair to it, and it's just a fun book. You may have seen, I think, is there a movie, a Paddington movie? I'm not very up to date with movies. But of course, this is one that's more well known, but we liked just reading the original. Really enjoyed that. Oh, there's another one that we got from the library a few months ago before they closed. I think it was called Letters from Paddington, and it was fun to read also. It was letters that he wrote back and forth with the bears that he left behind. Stuart Little. This is also the author of Charlotte's Web. I don't know if I grabbed... I think I couldn't find Charlotte's Web. But anything by E.B. White, of course, is wonderful. This would be a very fun book to read your younger elementary school age children. Yeah, about a little mouse named Stuart. Eleanor Essie's books. We have enjoyed so many of her books. This one is The Moffats, and it's about a family that lives in this little house and just all the mischief that they get into. She has one called Rufus M. There's one about, I think it's called The Museum, something like that, about when they put together a museum. It's just fun, wholesome books that took place in a different era, but are very engaging. These, it's these kind of books that the kids beg me to keep reading because you just never know what the characters are going to get into, and it's just fun, lighthearted fun. This is a classic that I had to throw in there because several of my kids just finished reading it. Of course, many people know of this book because, again, I think it was a movie. This is part of a trilogy. There's 3 of these. The Arrow Over the Door is a book that we bought when one of my boys was having trouble just getting into chapter books. So they knew how to read, but they were having trouble just finding something that they wanted to read. And so I try to keep a lookout for books like that, and if you have any recommendations for me, let me know. These are books that are shorter, and so it's not such a long time to have the gratification of finishing a book. They're books that, of course, don't have tiny words. This one, there were quite a few words that he didn't know because it's a little bit more advanced, but it is a historical fiction. It is just an excellent storyline, and he really enjoyed it. Another one that I've talked about before, let me grab out a few more easy readers here, or beginning readers, not necessarily easy readers. We're into chapter books here, but not quite as long and kind of flow quickly. Chocolate Fever is another one that was very enjoyed, about this boy who loves chocolate so much that he just constantly eats it until he gets chocolate fever, and it's about all his adventures and just these bad guys that he has to help. It's very lighthearted kid boy adventure fun that your kid will like. And then another one along that same line of that last Puffin, I think this one was, yeah, those Puffin chapter books are kind of good to keep an eye out for if you see any at used book sales, or of course all of these books, if I can find them on Amazon, I will make a big list below in the description box so that you can easily just click over and check them out. This is another one like the last one that I told you, 20 in 10. So this is another kind of historical fiction book that was very exciting to my boys. These are the kind of books that can capture their attention and got them reading, because they didn't want, books that made it feel like you were reading a little kid book. They wanted adventure, and they wanted excitement, and they wanted something that wasn't too overwhelming. Another one along that line is The Secret Soldier. This is about a woman, Deborah Sampson. So I guess this one is a biography, so this was based on her true story. It was about Deborah Sampson, who wanted to help the nation by joining the army. So she goes undercover as a man in uniform, so that's her true story. And then another one, Lily and Miss Liberty. I remember little Elsie, she was one of my early readers that I just couldn't keep enough books around for her. And I remember her being pretty small and reading this and saying, I have to tell my friends about this book. She thought it was really good. Lily and Miss Liberty. So another kind of historical fiction book. And there was one, I'm trying to remember what that other one, I think it was something about Watch the Lighthouse. Oh boy, I can't remember the name of that book. I'll put it in the description box when I think of it. It was a book about a girl who had to guard the lighthouse while her dad was away. It was even a step down from these. It would really be a good, if you have a really struggling reader who's older and wants an exciting story, but it's very, it's less words per page, more pictures. I'll find that book and link it below. All right, Carolyn Haywood. You guys know I'm a Carolyn Haywood fan, and I'm always on the lookout for her books to buy because a lot of them, maybe all of them, I don't know. I always look for used copies because you just can't buy them new anymore, and they're treasures. So books like Eddie's Green Thumb, there are so many. I just grabbed one. They're wholesome books about boys and girls from a bygone era, and they're, again, just exciting, and the kids don't want to put them down, or they want me to keep reading. It's wonderful to get books that I don't have to worry about. I really enjoy going to the library, and I've been missing the library greatly, but there always is a burden when I go to the library because I try so hard to find books that are appropriate and not giving my kids a message that I don't want them to have. I was a big time reader when I was a kid, and I got a lot of impressionable ideas that I would have been better off not reading about in the books that I read, because just like some of my kids, I read faster than my mom could supervise. So I would go to the library and I'd be down in the kids section or the teen section, but you know, quite honestly, there's a lot of trash at our libraries, and they are targeting our kids. And so, not to get off on or get on my soapbox here, but it's difficult. It's difficult for moms to try to keep an eye on that when our kids have more reading time than we do, and they're reading faster than we do. I want books that help build my children up and don't steer them off on a path that I don't want them to go down. So that's why I do kind of search the internet a lot for book lists that other Christian moms recommend. I take all of your suggestions, and I have a master list that I'm keeping all of those suggestions for. Supposedly next week, actually, our library is going to start curbside pickup again. So that's their step one to reopen. And you better believe it, I'm going to be there with my order and my bag ready to get my 100 books. Just kidding, but that is our library card maximum. Okay, moving on. Margaret Henry. I have a horse lover, and also Leo enjoyed these books. So it's not just for girls. All of her books are about horses. There's many different chapter books. This one actually is about a boy. Justin Morgan had a horse. Many horse books, and they've enjoyed all that I have gotten by her. Okay, this is kind of an eccentric book. We read this about a year ago, 21 Balloons. It is a book, if you want to read something that's a little strange and very intriguing and leaves you scratching your head and just kind of wild fiction that could never possibly happen, this would be a book to pick up. It's about this adventurer he was a teacher, but he said, enough with it, I want to go out and explore, and I'm going to go by balloon. And so it's about his whole story that his plan is to fly across the Pacific Ocean, but he crashes, he lands on this crazy island that there's this huge diamond mine, and all the people are just infinitely wealthy, but you're never supposed to leave that island, because if the world found out, then all their diamonds wouldn't be worth anything because there's so many, and it's just very unusual. So it's about all the people that he meets there and the strange inventions that they've invented, and the way that they structure their island community. It's just it's very imaginative, and my kids did enjoy it. They did. All right, this is another series that my kids have read to themselves. I have not read this one aloud. The Borrowers. I want to say there's maybe 5 books in the series. I can't remember. But they're about these tiny people that live, I guess, in the walls of the house. There's actually another series called The Littles, about little people that live in the house. And The Littles would be for a younger audience. I've read those books to my, I guess, my 4 and 5-year-olds. Or they would be another small book that would be great for your beginning readers to read, because again, they're thin books, and it would be more instant gratification. So both of those are kind of along the same idea. Elsie's read through these a couple times. I think there's a lot more adventure going on in here, but it's a bigger book, so you can fit more. Here's another book that she's read many, many times. This is the Betsy Tacy Treasury. So I guess these Betsy Tacy books are from, well, The author was born in 1892, and wow, lived a long time, 90 years. But these are books that were, they were just kind of classics from the past about these three little girls and just their adventures. And again, they're very simple, about children who live in another time. And so you can get the books individually. We found this one on Amazon for a really good price, and it's all of the Betsy Tacy books in one treasury. This is a book we read as a family, and it was very moving. I think Jason and I probably got more out of it than the kids did, because it's so rich with meaning. We had actually read through probably half of the original Pilgrim's Progress when our kids were small. It was way over their heads, but we were in a season where we just decided to plow through it. It was really good. And then life happened. I don't remember what it was, and we disbanded it and never went back to it. I had like a digital copy that I was reading because I think it's in public domain, so you can read it for free. So when I heard about this book, I kind of hesitated because I am not a fan of taking great books and dumbing them down for kids. But that's not what this is. This is its own story. It's separate. You could read both of them side by side. And of course it is the same storyline. This author, she did take Pilgrim's Progress, but she didn't just take it and reword it to make it easier for kids to read. She took the story of Pilgrim's Progress and remade it into a child's journey. And so it's children who are traveling along as they go toward heaven. And it's all the symbolism that comes with it, and all of the temptations and the battles and the victories that go with it. It is so incredible. I have goosebumps just thinking about it. The chapters are very short. There are some illustrations throughout. It took us a long time to get through this book, simply because we didn't read huge chunks of it at a time. There was so much to think about that we would just read 1 or 2 chapters and then stop. And so it really took a long time to get through it. But I will be doing it again. We will be reading through it again because it was just so good. The Trumpet of the Swan. This is such a good book. This is another one by E.B. White. I actually had 2 copies, and I just gave one to a friend of mine. It's so funny. I had never read this book as a kid for some reason, which is pretty amazing because it's kind of a kid's classic. And so when I was an adult and we were given a copy of this book, I went to read it to the kids, and I thought, what in the world is this going to be about? But okay, we'll give it a try, I guess. And we were just sucked into it, and it was so good. All about this incredible swan and his adventures. And yeah, I think probably Bella, she was maybe about 10, maybe 9 and down when we read this book, and we really enjoyed it. Okay, we have read through the Chronicles of Narnia as a family, so I just grabbed one here. Again, another book, a series for older children, not for your younger elementary. Although when we read as a family, everybody listens. It's a family thing. But it's just so incredible when you think about this and the parallels to our Christian walk, to Christ himself. It's just so much good, so many good thoughts to think about. And actually, we read through this probably a year ago, maybe. But Leo actually just asked to read through it again and got the whole series down off the shelf and read through it again because it just was good. Little Women, of course, I don't need to say much about that because we all probably know about it. But this I actually just read to my girls just once. What I've found as my kids get older and I have a lot of variety in ages and a lot more going on in my life, I have found that there is a special treasure in once in a while with a kid that I can tell is just needing some extra mom attention. I will find a book that I will read just to them, and I'll just keep it in my stack, and whenever I have a spare 10 or 15 minutes, I'll grab that child and we'll read a chapter. And so it's a special time that we have together. And you know, as my kids get older and all of our projects here are many, it's getting harder and harder to find regular reading times. It used to be so easy when we just didn't have so much to do and we would all gather around at home, but it's getting harder. I'm having to be a lot more intentional about it and just stop what I'm doing, interrupt everything, and just read because we need to read. It's part of our family. Understood, Betsy. This book, I was surprised at how much I really liked this book. It was another one that I hadn't known anything about, and when we first started it, I thought, oh boy, what in the world are we getting into? But oh, we will read this book again. It was so good. It's about this girl named Elizabeth Ann who, her parents had died and she was raised by these old aunts who tried very hard to take care of her, but turned her into this stifled, sickly, fearful child because they overmothered her to the extent that she was just like afraid to live. And then they, one of them gets sickly and has to be sent to the seaside or something. I'm trying to remember where they went. And so she has to be sent to the other relatives. Now the other relatives are this older man and woman who never had children, and they are farmers. And so she gets there and she's in for the shock of her life because they don't coddle her at all. Not at all. They're just like, all right, we're glad you're here, get to work. And it is about the transformation within a very short period of time. This sickly, weak girl turns into this spunky country girl that when she ends up reuniting with the aunts again, they can't even believe this is her. Her life is so changed. I have goosebumps just thinking about this, you guys. It was a great book. Now, you know how I am about these. I'm glad I only picked a few because I get more and more worked up but as the video goes on here. So we're coming to the end. We'll do another one of these in the future. Okay, Plain Girl. I actually have not read this book. Both of my girls have read this book, and one of my children who is not as much of an adamant reader, shall I say, they said this book was so good and I needed to recommend it. So there you go. 3 more books. We're getting to the end. So Island of the Blue Dolphins is another one that you probably have heard of. It's a story about a girl, an Indian girl who is left behind on an island and has to survive on her own. So this is not one that we've read aloud as a family, but many of my kids have enjoyed. And the same goes for this one, My Side of the Mountain. In fact, Leo just read this book again for the second time, and he just couldn't stop talking to me about it, telling me, you know, what he had read, which I always think is the best compliment for a book, is when a kid can't stop telling you all about it. You know, he's just at the perfect age for this. He's 12, and that's what this, I want to say maybe this boy was right about his age. I think he was right about 12, somewhere around there, and again has to survive or chooses to survive in the wilderness alone, and just all that he goes through and learns. And so it's pretty moving for Leo at this season in his life. And the last book, such a treasure. I've talked about this before. This author wrote this about her grandmother. There are more than one, and we've only read one, but there are more that I'm still have on my list to get. But they are just it's just a precious treasury of stories. Each chapter is like its own story about her grandma, and it's another one that the kids just beg me to keep reading and don't want me to put it down. One more chapter. But that's all I have for you guys today. I will see you soon. Please, again, I always beg you to tell me your favorite family read aloud books down in the comments below, and I will see you all very soon. Bye-bye.